anything that I've done, any mistake that I've made, any change that I've had, it's made me who I am. It all kind of is happened and made me who I am and where I am and what I'm doing.
Welcome to the Private Chef Podcast, serving the 1%. I'm your host, Hannes Henchen, and on our show we speak to the best chefs, how they honed in on their skills to excel in the industry, and what it takes to work as a private chef for some of the most exclusive clients in the world. Welcome back to the Private Chef Podcast. Today we have Erin Anderson. She's in the greater Boston area. It's not quite Boston, but almost. So welcome to the show, Erin.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So one of the things that I personally find very interesting is people that find their passion and go on that personal exploration. And Erin actually had a completely different career path before she ended up in the kitchen. So I would like to kind of hear what that was like for you to explore that personal passion of yours and eventually pursue the kitchen path.
Sure. So just a brief background. I went to school to university for film and television production. So that was my training. That's what I did. And I went to school in Boston and ended up moving to Los Angeles area to pursue my career in film and television production. And I did that for about 8 years. And just living in Southern California to me was a totally different food culture than Massachusetts. The influence of the Latin culture is huge, and the climate is so different that it just provided like fresh produce year round and farmers markets year round. And Friday night, I could go to a farmer's market in November, and you can't do that in Massachusetts. The farmer's markets are all done by October. Everybody's kind of wrapping those up. So it was just a different experience for me, and my friends and I would just go to farmers markets and just pick out things and take them back to one of our houses and just cook whatever came to us based on what we had picked up that day. And I just started getting more and more into food and into cooking with my friends and entertaining. And I always toyed with the idea of going and like trying to find a job in a restaurant, but I just thought like, well, nobody's going to hire me. I don't have any practical experience. I'm just like a foodie who enjoys cooking. I didn't think that anyone would really take me seriously. So I just kept saying no. And I would even look up jobs. I would see a job and be like, well, it's just like a little cafe. I could probably do that. It's, it's more simple food, and I do that at home. I could do that as a job, and I would just kind of talk myself out of it. And then finally my husband was like, you really love food. You love doing this more than you're loving working on TV shows and movies. So I just took a chance and I applied for a job as like a sandwich maker at a gourmet wine shop and Italian shop. And I think the chef there actually kind of liked that I didn't have experience because I could do her way.
Yeah.
Where I think
you weren't screwed up yet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like some people that I think she was working with that were coming out of culinary school were kind of like, well, this is how I was taught how to do it. And a lot of chefs maybe change things up a little bit or don't do things exactly how they were taught in culinary school. So I think she liked that she could teach me.
Yeah.
And she did. And I just started working there, making sandwiches during the lunch rush, and ended up just moving up pretty quickly there and becoming a supervisor and a manager. So that was kind of the start of it all.
So what did you do for the movies or in the TV production?
So I did a couple different things. I started out doing camera and lighting stuff for like concerts and events. And then I was a script supervisor, which is a very detail oriented position. You basically, if you see somebody like they're holding their phone in one hand or something, and then all of a sudden it's over here,
Yeah, it should be in the
or
same hand
yeah,
in the
like
next shot. Yeah.
continuity, like the
Yeah.
buttons on the shirt are two buttons and then all of a sudden a third button. So stuff like that. It's very detail oriented. So I guess some of that is good for cooking because we want to like make sure things look right and
Yeah, I was wondering where the parallels are. I mean, obviously, I think in film and movie production, you definitely have crazy hours at times too. So you were already used to that.
absolutely. Yeah.
I think it at times it can also be pretty rough in terms of the conduct in the movies. So you were already used to that
Yeah.
part. So what
Yeah, I
did you?
know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Usually when I tell people that I used to work in film and TV, they're like, "Oh wow, that's like a big jump." And I'm like, "Not totally." I mean, yes, in terms of what I'm doing, but what you said about like the hours are I think in film and television it's even crazier. The hours are
Yeah, because you have like in the middle of the night shoots, and it's all about like
yes.
perfect. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I have some friends in the movies, and sometimes like it blows my mind what they have to pull off to get stuff done. It's like,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all hours of the night, all conditions, weather, snow, rain, cold, whatever. And the people too, like people in kitchens can be kind of rough and it's like that in film too, a lot of like drama because you're dealing with so many people being together all the time. I think
yeah,
that's similar, like that you're like a family, but families can be difficult too.
yeah, but like a family.
Yeah.
So, how did you kind of? You said that you went into cooking for friends, and why did you question your ability to cook? Maybe in a more professional manner. Like, I think
I I
already.
think
Yeah, go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
I think because I thought I needed some sort of training or some sort of experience. I mean, I did have a little bit like in high school when I was a teenager. I waited tables, like scooped ice cream and I made pizza. So I had like a tiny bit of experience, but I just think I probably doubted myself and whether I could do it or if people would think I was not qualified or like, what is she doing here? Like, she doesn't have a degree in this. And I think also being in California where, things were a little more expensive and I just probably thought I didn't know enough.
Yeah. So, being in that business then and working up the ranks, I'm sure actually the more so in the kitchen, I think it's more important to be passionate and kind of commit to it and organically grow than to have maybe the prerequisite and skill set.
Yeah,
I can
absolutely.
totally see that in the restaurant industry, how people appreciate somebody who actually wants to do it more, because that's it's I would almost say it's rare in the restaurant industry.
Yeah, and I think you have to have that little like sense of urgency. Some people just like you either have that or you don't, like just the ability to just like make it happen.
Yeah.
Like some people just can't get to the speed you need or to like that finesse. So I think it's both of those things, like the passion and like the finesse of it, I think helps.
So how did you transition from there into working in private households, cooking for families?
So, I mean, a lot has, that was like 15 years ago. So I feel like a lot has happened since
Hey,
then, but I've done
fill in.
everything from, I've done restaurants, as a line cook. I worked in corporate dining, like cafeteria style, which some people like, I think tend to look down on, but most of the places that I worked, I could make whatever I want. I used my own recipes and the hours were amazing. It was like Monday through Friday. I was out by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's like unheard of in the cooking world, professional cooking world.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while. And then we moved from California back to Massachusetts in 2012. And I worked again in corporate dining for a bit. And then I went back to a place that was similar to the first place I worked. It was a gourmet Italian shop. We had like sandwiches and prepared foods, but I was more of a manager position there. So, more dealing with the employees and the customers and front of house stuff. And then I realized that I just wasn't working directly with food enough. I wanted to still keep cooking more. So I ended up going and being a line cook for a while. And then I was like, I'm never home. So I went back to corporate dining for a while. And then I just I know what it was. A friend of mine was starting like a lifestyle agency, like kind of helping people find jobs in people's homes. And she had told me about this website, estatejobs.com. I don't know if you are familiar with that one. So I went on, I would just go on there, and there wasn't a lot in Boston area. It's more like those are like New York and California. There's a lot of positions, but I was like, well, I'll just keep looking. And one job came up in the Boston area, and it was through an agency. And so I applied, and I did not get the job. But the agency ended up calling me for a different job a few months later, and I ended up getting it. It was cooking for a couple in their home 5 days a week. It was great. Like the hours were amazing. The money was good. But like cooking for the same people over and over again with a particular taste can get a little bit stale.
Yep.
And then the pandemic hit, and I was cooking from home and delivering to them just for everybody's safety. And then I started doing private dinners in people's homes just on the side. Like another personal chef friend of mine had told me that he had done that. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that was like really a thing that people were doing, especially with the pandemic happened. But it was actually more popular because of the pandemic.
Yeah, people didn't have anywhere to go to.
Right. So I think people felt safer like having someone just come to their house rather than going out somewhere and having to deal with like, you only have 90 minutes to eat, or you have like a divider in between your table or whatever. So I started doing a couple of private dinners, just like one or two a month. And then my clients, once the vaccine became available, they decided to do some traveling. So they did not need a chef anymore. And so I was like, do I want to go back to restaurants or corporate dining? I mean, I've been booking private dinners. Let's just like make this happen. So that's just what I've been doing. And I had this whole idea to do picnic boxes. So you like the whole charcuterie craze, right? Everybody's doing charcuterie boards. So I wanted to do something different than that. So I had like picnic boxes, and they were all filled like with prepared foods, and you could just take it and go with you to a picnic or to a concert, tailgate, whatever. And I was like so excited about it. Like this was going to be my thing. And it just did not take off. I think if I had done it earlier on in the, like at the beginning of the pandemic, I think it really would have done well. But I think I was just like a little late to the game because during the pandemic, people people weren't going out, but people were going to parks or doing things outdoors. So I think it would have been good for that. But it was fine. I was just like, well, I'm booking private dinners every weekend anyway. I wouldn't have even had time to make these boxes. So I just kind of scrapped the boxes. I was like, you start a business and one thing works and one thing doesn't. So just kind of went with what was working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to unpack a little bit. How did you start getting more traction on the private parties?
Honestly, a lot of people don't like Thumbtack, but that's where I started getting jobs, and I've gotten many repeat clients through there. So that's how I've gotten a lot. Also, just friends on Instagram and Facebook, sharing posts, posting on local pages, local restaurant pages where, there's a lot of people that are interested in food, or they might post like, hey, where's a great place to go to dinner for my parents' 50th anniversary with all of our siblings? And I could just respond and say, how about having a private chef come to your home and prepare a dinner? And even if it's not that person that sees it, like somebody else would contact me and say, oh, I saw your comment. And yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of planting the seeds, even so that particular person might not pick you up on it, but it's out there. I mean,
exactly.
The internet kind of works in that old fashion. It's out there and it works for you while you're sleeping if you do it right.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's been helpful.
So going back, you mentioned that originally the agency didn't get you that particular job, but what was your experience like as somebody who maybe didn't have a culinary degree or didn't come from the most fancy restaurants, approaching and working with an agency, and how did they treat you?
I mean, they were great. I think my resume speaks for itself. I think I wouldn't have gotten all of those other jobs if I wasn't capable of doing the job.
Yeah.
So I think they were confident, and they go through a deep background check and they check all your references. And I had written references. I think you even have to write a personal letter saying like why you would fit the job and why just something personal about you. And I think I don't think it's all about the degree.
Oh no, it isn't. It's obviously, I think to a large degree it's more about the person, but I think they do help. Or one of the things that I keep seeing, one of the themes is there are particular names in the industry, certain restaurants that really open the doors with agencies and with families because the families recognize them too, as well as the agents. So that's just one of the things that I usually like to touch up on, because we've had so many different career paths with chefs, and at the end of the day, the ones that want to make it work. But I'm always curious how it unfolds and how are the conversations with the agents, and how did they eventually overcome objections, if there were any.
I don't think there were any. I don't even think they asked about it. I mean, it's obvious on my resume. I put that my degree is in film and television production. That's on my resume, even though it's a chef resume, because I'm still proud of that degree. I went to a good school and I did the work, so I put it on there. But I don't think I was asked by the client that ended up hiring me. I don't think I was asked about a culinary degree. I think it probably depends too on what that client is looking for. Like at the time, if they want someone who's going to have a dinner party and have it be like a Michelin star type of meal, then like I might not be the chef for them, now I've changed and I do fancier meals just because of how my business has evolved and the things that I do. But yeah, I guess I don't think the degree, not having a degree hasn't hurt me in doing what I want to do
Yeah.
as a chef. Yeah. Like, I guess some of the techniques that you would learn in school, like I wouldn't know, but then I think those are things you learn on the job too, or learn if you, I go and I seek out what I want to learn.
Yeah. I actually
Yeah.
think I'm glad you're emphasizing on that. And I think in this particular industry, people who are passionate about it will leave people with culinary degrees behind any day of the week. Because,
Yeah. Absolutely.
if you really dive into that passion and like, you will go to the farmers markets and you will have the recipes, you will go into books and maybe YouTube videos, and you will always look for new dishes and skills that you're personally interested in. And that's it almost doesn't matter what degree you have, because that passion will yield so much more product knowledge. And I
Right.
think even on the level of techniques or stuff, the curiosity naturally drives you into that direction eventually.
Yes, absolutely. And I think even chefs who went to school, the learning doesn't end there. There's always so much
Definitely.
more
Definitely not.
I mean, it was the same. Also, my degree is in film and television production, but you can't learn in school the things that you do on a film set or a TV set. Like, it's just totally like my first film set that I was on, I had no idea what was going on. I mean, you know how to compose a shot, like you
Yeah.
might know how to compose a dish, but the real inner workings of it, I think you need to be in the restaurant, or you need
Yeah,
to be on the film
100%.
set. I mean, I guess that's one difference in culinary school. A lot of them you do like an externship where you go and you work in a restaurant, but yeah, I mean, it's just the hands-on experience is really where where the learning happens for me anyway.
I think that's true for anybody. I think the people that are action oriented and really get into the weeds will always outperform if you're just studying it without application.
Right.
And I mean, obviously, there's culinary schools who give you some sense of application, or those externships and such. But I think that having somebody who's passionate, who works their ranks up in a restaurant, and just loves what they're doing, will outperform any day of the week.
Yes. Yeah.
So, so kind of taking it back to the business aspect of it. How did you, or how do you manage at this point to have a very consistent flow in terms of work, and how much do you want to work, and yeah, how do you go about that?
That's a good question. I work right now. I only work like probably a few days a week, honestly,
Yeah,
which is nice. I have a couple of meal prep. Actually, right now I have one meal prep client where I go in and I make like 5 meals and I leave it for them. And then I usually have a couple of jobs on the weekend. This weekend I have Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that's kind of unusual that I have like 3 in a row, but I booked one, and then another guy was like kind of on the fence about whether he was going to book it. It had been like a week. So I was like, oh, he's not
he's
going to
not
do
booking.
it. So I booked one for Friday, and then he's like, oh yeah, it sounds great. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing 3 straight. So that's not like ideal because they're they're long days when I'm doing events, depending on how many people they're for. It's, you start the day, you do the shopping, then do a little bit of prep, and then go to their house and finish up, clean up. And by the time you're home, it's like 10 o'clock. So it's a long day.
Yeah.
I'm actually in a period where I'm like deciding what I'm going to do next, whether I'm going to keep doing this or whether I'm going to open a little cafe. And that's why I kind of laughed when you asked that question of like, how much do you want to work? Because right now I'm in the spot where I'm working a few days a week and I'm considering changing, and it would be like, 6-day weeks again.
Yeah.
So it's
Actually,
a tough.
let's unpack that one together. The pros and cons between
Yes. Yeah.
opening your own cafe or staying maybe in the personal chef business and being
Yeah.
able to say no, and also taking off a week without having any obligations.
Yes. Like I just got back from California to visit my friend for her birthday. Like I couldn't do that if I open a cafe. And I do, a couple of times a year, I go up to the coast of Maine and cook for a retreat, a women's retreat. And it's like the most amazing week. It's like this beautiful location, 3 miles out to sea. It's just like amazing. And I'm like, oh, I won't be able to do that anymore if I open this cafe. So it's really deciding whether I want to have like complete control over when I work and when I don't work, or if I want to be doing something that I've always wanted to do that I will probably regret doing if I don't do it. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
So what part of owning the cafe is so fulfilling to you that you would consider giving up the freedom and the things you love to do currently?
So one of the things I don't like about my current job is the fact that I'm alone like all the time,
Yeah.
So that's hard. It's hard. I miss the interaction with other people, kind of like getting your work done, but like joking around a little bit and like, just having fun with your coworkers or, just being around people in general because, my husband's at work, I'm home, I'm doing like working on menu stuff or whatever, but I'm alone a lot of the time. Yeah. So that having like connection with coworkers as well as the community that the cafe would be in, the customers, the back and forth kind of banter, the feedback, talking about food, sharing my food, and also it being my food. Because despite the fact that as a personal chef, I'm coming up with the menus, I'm still basing it on what the client wants.
Yeah.
I'm not basing I'm cooking what I like to cook, but ultimately it's what they want. So the ability to be able to just put out a menu and say, this is what I'm making, and if you don't like it, then go somewhere else in the nicest way possible.
Yeah, that works to some degree. Eventually, there's bills to be paid, and so food needs to sell.
Yeah, of course. I mean, assuming that the food that I'm making is food that people want to buy, which I think it is.
Okay.
So.
I don't know. Maybe you go very haywire, and then you have a very small customer base. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, the idea is to like have a small cafe. But yeah, it's a tough decision. It's a lot to consider, giving up the freedom, the ability to just fly to California or take a job out of state in a cool location with a cool experience. It's a big decision.
Maybe there's something in between where you can, start working with a team. Maybe, for example, you take the food that you do in people's homes or the event to a different level where maybe you bring your own waiters or you go for a larger event size so you can have your own team of people that come with you. Maybe there's something in between where you don't have the same liability like owning a cafe. You have to sign a lease, you have to be at least open, I guess, 5-6 days a week in order to make it profitable and to actually appeal to customers. And if you're open 7 days a week, I mean, you know how that's going to go for you.
Right. Yeah, I actually have an opportunity to partner with an existing shop that sells wine and cheese and stuff, and they actually have a kitchen. So it would basically be me kind of like renting the space from them, and
Yeah.
like with a plan to potentially take it over fully in a couple of years. So it wouldn't be quite as much of a commitment as like buying a business, or it would just be partnering with them. And we're still kind of working out the logistics and the financials of it all and if it'll work. And so, yeah, it's all kind of in development. So you've caught me kind of figuring things out, which I guess is good because it's probably good for people to hear like where you could go or the things you could come across that could be difficult decisions for you, and like the advantages and disadvantages of what we do. And that's one of the biggest things, like we talked about, is like that freedom of your time.
Yeah. I mean, I find this part super interesting because honestly, after speaking to so many different chefs, there's no path that equals, but it's always very, very interesting to hear like where people are taking it, you know. And I find that in the chef scene, there's so many different avenues where one can take it, and you can really follow kind of your own passion and how you want to design your life. And for me, owning cafe would not be on the list, honestly. And I'm
No.
actually actively trying to talk my mom out of doing the same thing right
Oh,
now.
really? She wants to open it. She wants you to open a cafe, or she wants to open a cafe?
She wants to open up a
Yeah.
cafe, and you know so she's about to retire from our family business, which is like a 130-year-old food shop, which has like
Oh, wow.
cheese and meats, and it's a long tradition, and we're kind of winding that down towards the end of the year. And she's already like, oh, I want something else. I want to open a cafe. And I'm like, how about you take a year off?
Right. And see how
And
much you love that.
yeah, and just like get off that treadmill that you've been on for 40 years and
Yes.
just take it easy for some time
I
because
heard that one. I heard that honk.
yeah.
So where is this shop? Where is your family's shop?
So that's close to Frankfurt in Germany.
Oh, great. Awesome.
Yeah.
So it's going to be closing completely?
Yes, because
Wow.
I didn't want to take it over. I didn't want to be the next generation here,
Yeah.
which obviously from a legacy standpoint is kind of sad, and my grandpa is kind of like pretty sad about it. But I think I gave it a genuine approach. Like I really thought about what I could do with it, but it's just not the life I want to live that comes
Yeah.
with the package.
And that's good that you're not like, I'm sure there was some pressure from your family to keep it going. Some people supportive, some people want you to do it, but it's good you have to do what you want to do.
Yeah, and I mean, my parents didn't really pressure me at all. They
Oh,
really
good.
gave me. They were like, hey, you do what you want to do. It's maybe more so my grandpa who has that nostalgic idea that it should just never end, you know. And I'm like, well, it's, you know, there is a lot more going on in the world than living in that small village here in Germany.
Yes. And maybe they can go see some of it now if they don't have to be working all the time.
Yeah, that definitely. I'm trying to take them on a trip to India next year in February.
Oh, wow.
So hopefully that will all go well, and we wind down the shop, and my mom doesn't immediately open up a cafe, and she has the time to come on the trip.
Yes. Oh, it
Yeah.
sounds like she just wants to keep working.
Well, you know, sometimes people have their emotional home, or they're so used to something that everything else without it sounds like terrifying almost.
Yes.
So I don't know. That will be interesting transition for her, and I actually think that's very common with chefs too. Like once you step out of the kitchen and you don't. There's many professional chefs who don't have a life outside of the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Yes.
it's somewhat for obvious reasons. I guess it takes a lot of dedication and a lot of time to be a chef at a certain level. But I mean, if you were to step back into that cafe, that cafe will own your life in many ways.
Yep.
You're like,
No, it's funny because I'm well aware. Yes, I'm well aware of what I would be getting myself into. But it's just something I've always wanted to do. And I feel later in life, I will regret it if I don't do it.
but for me, it sounds like what you really care for in that cafe idea, and I think it actually strikes a similar chord than what I'm gathering from my mom beyond the work is the community aspect of bringing people together and kind of having
Yeah.
that. It's almost, when I think about it, the way my mom probably also describes it, it's almost like when you're in Italy or in Spain, and you everybody comes there every day, and they have their little paninis or their little espressos, and everybody's just chatting with each other, and even if it's
Yeah.
just for 5-10 minutes, but you get to know each other, and it's just that gathering place where people get together and share stories.
Yeah, exactly. And just catching up with people, those repeat customers that you see and they're like, "Oh, do you have like I want to have like prepared foods so people can come in and grab things." And if they're just like looking for a particular item and like being excited about that thing and it being the food that I really enjoy making, the type of food that I really
Yeah.
enjoy making.
I think that's one of the most rewarding things in the world, and oftentimes I kind of compare it with musicians that get to play the music they would love to play, and they get the
Right.
the reward or the public acknowledgement to it.
Yeah. But it's like always, am I always just looking for the thing that will satisfy me? Because it's been everything I've done, I've loved doing for a different reason. So you worry, like, is that going to become boring to me? Not that being a personal chef is boring, or what I'm doing is boring, but will I tire of it after a few years? And if I do, then I do. Then I'll just move on to something else. I mean, clearly from my history, I'm not afraid to change careers or make changes. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
but you make things work,
Yeah, yeah.
so
I
you
just
don't
don't
need
want
to
to.
be
I
afraid.
don't. Yeah, I don't like to have regrets. Even anything that I've done, any mistake that I've made, any change that I've had, it's made me who I am. Not to sound corny or cliche, but if I didn't make that mistake, if I didn't make that turn, then I wouldn't have met my husband, or I wouldn't have met this friend, or you know.
Yeah,
So it all kind of is happened and made me who I am and where I am and what I'm doing. So if it doesn't work out, then I'll just do something else. No, I mean, still, I can go back to doing private dinners or, I still have this established clientele and I can still even do private dinners
I was just about
in
to
the
say it
cafe.
doesn't contradict each other. I mean,
Right.
actually, if you have that kitchen, if you have your cafe, it might be quite an organic supplement to pick up a couple parties here and there, and you can
Right.
probably even cater to that more efficient than you currently do.
Yes, because that's one thing we haven't talked about is just the logistics of being a personal chef.
Yeah,
It's
which
like,
is immense.
yeah, I mean, even just everything I do, I'm just dragging stuff with me in and out and back and forth. And I can't prep I don't know how it is in other countries, but in the United States, in most states, you can't prepare food out of your home kitchen. So it's got to be done out of a commercial kitchen. And then so for bigger events, I use a commercial kitchen space.
Yeah,
And, I have to bring everything in there that I need and then bring it back out to go to the event and then back. So it's a lot of moving stuff around.
yeah, yeah. I think in New York City there's a kind of like a home prep license, but that's for like small scale production. I think
Yeah, I
generally
know.
they want us to cook out of the commercial kitchens
Right.
that are
Yeah.
being
In
shared.
Massachusetts, people who do like baking can do it out of their homes. So people who make like cookies and cakes and
Yeah.
chocolates and things, they can do it. But anything that needs refrigeration, which technically frosting, buttercream needs refrigeration. So I'm not sure how the cake bakers get away
It's
with it, but
it's a gray area on the cake.
yeah, but they have refrigerators, so they do it. But yeah, so that's, the logistics of it are a lot. So having a home base, it would be nice.
Yeah, I could see that working. So you have the cafe and you have the kitchen, which also see that allows you to have somebody help you prep that you probably wouldn't be able to maybe just have for that one particular event.
Yeah, yeah, no, I would definitely need an employee or two for sure.
So it might actually uh, be work well together. But
Yeah, I think
yeah,
there's a lot of opportunities to do some fun things there. Like the shop already has like a kind of community table that seats like 17 people. So I could do like tasting dinners or like special, like kind of like fun, like a tapas and wine night or something because it's a wine shop. So there are things I could do to make it more than like just your average cafe where you get like some prepared foods and some sandwiches. I think there's opportunities to do other things, which would be fun.
I actually think it sounds very cool, especially with the community table that you just described. And I think because also I think wine shops or a good wine shop, they have a good customer base of regulars, so that community
Right.
aspect that you're looking for will be there, and it can really like play back and forth between what you're doing and the wine they're having, and then occasionally you have those kind of community table nights where you can have tapas nights and themed
Right.
nights, and I could see that playing very well. I would still
Yeah.
do.
And it still is making it like a personal experience and people could rent it out and we could do a plated dinner like I do now in people's homes, but they can come out and do it and we could still make it like a custom like curated menu the way I do, but it's like in the space, which is kind of fun.
Which is also pretty unique, no? That's a pretty cool offering in itself. Like, I mean, you're
Right.
eating in a wine shop, so it's not sure what the licensing like is in Massachusetts. Yeah, I'm not. I'm. Sounds like something that doesn't work in New York City in that in that way, but it sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, I think it could be good.
Yeah, I mean, besides the fact that I would be scared for my life of not having any time for myself anymore.
Yeah. Well, they are closed. They're currently closed on Mondays. And we talked about like we should keep it like that. Because I mean, that's not going to be like a day off. I know I'm going to be placing orders or I'm going to be paying invoices or like working on a schedule or a menu or whatever. I know it's not a day off, but at least maybe it's a day where I can sit on my couch and do it
Yeah,
and do
I think
paperwork.
you should definitely keep that day, and
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
looking at what my family went through. We went from being open 7 days a week for years to eventually, I think, closing on Mondays. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it just gave my oh well no we weren't wait that's not true, we were open 6 days a week and then we were closed on Sundays, and we started being closed on Mondays, and it just always ended up being an office day anyway, but at least
Right.
you can do it on your terms, and
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing. Keep that day. I would highly
Yeah,
encourage you to keep
definitely.
that, uh, at least till you have somebody that you feel like is really on board with what you wanted to do, and you have a team member that has a sense of ownership that you can rely
Yes.
on, and then
Yeah.
you can explore opening it up. But otherwise, as long as it's you and maybe someone who you just hired, I would definitely
Yeah.
keep that margin of safety.
Yeah, I have a couple of people that help me out with parties now that are interested in coming on board if this happens. So I should, in the next probably month or so, it should all play out. And if it doesn't work out, then I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing because I do enjoy it. And it's not like I mean, I would probably be a little disappointed if it doesn't work out, but at the same time, I'll be able to travel if I want to. I'll be able to go do that retreat in Maine. I'll probably try to explore other things like that. Like the traveling jobs are really cool. I don't know if you've had other personal chefs on that have done any like retreats or traveling jobs, but they're like a whole other
Yeah.
beast, especially when you're
And
3 miles out to sea and you have to bring everything with you.
yeah.
So,
I mean, especially provisioning on like yachts and stuff.
oh yes.
We had someone who was like in hunting lodges that also had to be provisioned at once, and so there's a lot of really interesting jobs out there.
Yeah, yeah. This one was like I had to bring everything with me for almost 2 weeks worth of food, and we pack it all on the boat, take it over, and then we ended up coming up with a system where we had placed an order, like a pickup order at a grocery store, and had a friend pick it up and bring it to the dock for us so that I didn't have to, because if I had to leave the island, it would have taken like 6 hours or something.
Yeah.
And that's all the time lost in prep and cooking. So, but it's a good experience to be able to travel for your job and doing what you love and being able to be in a cool location, you know?
I think that's actually one of the benefits between private and personal chefing is that, I mean, most people that want to have that kind of service, they go to extraordinary places, and
Yes.
they want to have service and food there, and we get to be there.
Yeah. I know the lady that actually runs the retreat that I do up in Maine, she's thinking about doing one in France at some point. And she said, "Oh, would you be interested in doing that?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." I mean,
You're
I
like,
would think
no,
you would,
sorry, I got my cafe. No.
but yeah, but I was a little part of me was like, wouldn't you want to get a chef, like a French chef? But I'm not going to tell her that because I want to go.
They're actually also cheaper. And I was looking a little bit at job postings between Europe and the US,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's European chefs or European salaries don't quite match the US market.
Oh, really?
So don't tell her.
Okay, I won't tell her. If I don't open the cafe, there's so many ifs.
Yeah, right. So
Yeah.
but that's just one of those. There's so many interesting opportunities. Short-term travel, long-term travel, but I think there's something for anybody's lifestyle in the chef world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I had started doing this when I was younger, I would have loved to get into like yacht cooking. That just seems, I mean, crazy, but just the places that you get to go is amazing.
Yeah, I was always a bit wary of the yachts and boats. I felt like the chefs on yachts seem a little bit more alcoholic than the rest of us.
Yeah.
They seem to be more troubled.
Yeah, yeah. It's small, tight, even tighter quarters, right? And just, I mean, you have to be able to ready to do anything on a whim, right? If the guest wants something, like, you got to make it happen.
And the provisioning part is even harder. I mean, just like you said, you have to just have it all there, and if you don't, you're screwed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like going through, you have to be really planned out with your menus so that, like, oh, I need this much flour, I need sugar. Like, you can't forget one little thing like baking powder, just like some little ingredient that you might take for granted because it's always in your cupboard. But if
Yeah.
you don't think of it, like you said, you're screwed if you're out there.
That would be very flat pastry today.
Yes. Yeah, if you forget, I don't know, what if you forget salt or olive oil or something?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm very happy with what I'm doing. It's always a lot to maintain. It's generally what we do is all us, right? I mean, there's nobody else to write the menus or make sure that your taxes get paid or the bills get paid. So it's just something you have to be always on top of. It's not just about the cooking or the food.
Yeah.
It's a whole business too.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it. Is that something that you, I mean, you did go through the learning curve working for someone else originally. You started kind of working your way through the ranks into management. So you got more and more familiar with the business aspect of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the part that probably needs the most work. I mean, I'm good. I'm pretty good about keeping track of all my expenses versus my sales and like paying my taxes and all that. So, but yeah, you have to make sure you do that stuff. It's otherwise, how do you know if you're making money? How do you know if you're charging enough or doing enough jobs? Like, yeah, you have to know, even though we don't have a lot of overhead as a personal chef, you still have it. I mean, I've got insurance to pay and
Yeah.
yeah.
One of the things that I keep seeing that challenges chefs is understanding the tax liability that comes with the income.
Yeah. And like making sure you put the money aside, right?
Yeah. But and also making sure you get your money's worth or your time's worth on a net income basis. Like,
yeah.
some people, I don't know, I pick a random number, like, a couple $100 sounds good to them, but then they don't understand the liability at the end of the year. And just like you said, if they don't set it aside, you're in a pickle.
Yeah. And making sure you're charging enough and so that you're covered for your taxes, your expenses, and you can't just say, oh, well, I want to make $50 an hour and assume that's going to be enough. You have to really think about how many days a week are you working? How much money are you bringing in? How much money needs to go to your expenses and your overhead so that you're taking home enough money?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that I think the business aspect is something that doesn't always come natural to people.
Right.
And
Yeah. We're so used to just like cooking and serving and yeah, that's all part of it.
Crucial part of it.
Yeah. I mean, we're doing it because we love it, but we're also doing it because we have to pay our bills.
Definitely. Everybody has to pay their bills.
Unfortunately, I wish we didn't have to, but
well, they didn't come up with that system yet where there are no bills to be paid.
no. Oh, that would be nice.
Well, Erin, the time actually has been flying here.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. Where can people connect with you?
So my website is gatherprovisions.com and my Instagram is at gather_provisions. And my email is cheferinanderson@gmail.com.
Awesome. And then where can they potentially find the cafe?
That's still a secret. I don't want to say yet because it's not 100% sure, but I'll keep you posted.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much for your time and, sharing those insights. I actually love the part kind of doing the mind game between the cafe or staying a person.
Yeah. It's a tough decision, but we'll see how it goes. See which way I end up.
Well, either way, I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. You too. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for joining us at the Private Chef podcast. If you know any highly skilled chefs that want to take their life to the next level, make sure to share this podcast with them. And if you enjoyed this episode, click subscribe and check out our upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening.